Well, here we are again. Day 25, personal transformation, year's worth. And we're covering James Allen as a Man Thinketh, Chapter 6, Visions and Ideals. Now, James Allen waxes poetic through this all the way through, but he starts picking up steam right here into the next chapter, and he really starts going into how you can create a better world out of all this. Now, as you've followed me along, you know that I have a rather more pragmatic view of these things, and also one which more or less aligns with Alan Watts' ideals of as he studied Zen, and he talked about it so much, as well as Lester Levinson is releasing, that the world exists for its own purpose. There's a greater bell curve of how things are and how things have always been. Now, and I've also told you that the higher end of the bell curve, so to speak, one end of it is pulling as much as the lower end is trying to destroy everything. And overall, the upper end wins because the lower end tends to destroy itself physically and destroy all its relationships, and so it makes it a weaker portion than the upper end. Now, you know from this last chapter he was talking about achievement, and before that he was talking about purpose, which is a very strong item all by itself. Then he talks about achievement. Now he's talking about visions and ideals, and he's working with you here to go ahead and go out there and do the biggest effect you can. He says, composer, sculptor, painter, poet, prophet, sage, these are the makers of the afterworld, the architects of heaven. The world is beautiful because they have lived. Without them, laboring humanity would perish. So he's talking about your small percentage, your 1 in 10,000, your 1 in a million, who actually go out and dream the big dreams and create huge things, you know. Any of the makers and shakers you have. And this really brings us back again to Napoleon Hill, who studied the makers and shakers of his era over those 20 years that he was studying these, and he interviewed these thousands of people and the 500 key makers and shakers he talks about. And that really gives you the whole framework for becoming that success. Now, added to this is Malcolm Gladwell's point of your 10,000 hours in his Outlier. Malcolm Gladwell wrote Outliers. In that book, he has his 10,000 hour criteria, which really, again, goes back to the earlier chapter we were talking about purpose. When you have your purpose, he talks in that book about how he traced back the hockey stars in Canada, who are, by the time they're 40, they're really over the hill, right? So that there's such a huge learning curve ahead of this that they have to start in elementary school training on this stuff from the time they're kids, and train all the way up so that by the time they're in high school, they're actually well trained physically, mentally, and they know all the moves and they're in good shape, and so that then they can get drafted and into the college sports, into the pro sports. Same really goes with any sport, so you have to start them way back there. It's the same way with kids. Look at Mickey Rooney. When did he start? He started as a child actor. And he's had a whole river of interest that has kept him his whole life successful in all these movies. But this is the point. You have your vision, you have your ideal out in front of you, and you really create that for yourself. That will mean that you do this training, you do this hard work to understand these things, to craft all the skills you need, so that then you can actually keep this sky-high goal out in front of you. And that if you reach for the stars, you're probably going to reach the sky, you know, because this is the whole driving force, and this is what he's pushing people to do, to go better and bigger, if anything is possible to you, which we've covered it is. Anything and everything you want to have, achieve, or acquire can be done. So why are you following, as Wallace Wattles, his example of the guy in his house, and he was telling him all about how you could do this, law of attraction, how it would work, just have to set up your ideal. And he says, well, I really have pretty much everything I want, except he rented his house and he was living in poverty. Well, the first thing he attracted was a rug in front of his door. And once he got that, he said, I could do this stuff. And within a year or so, he owned that house he was living in. Well, you can take this even further. You can be the Bill Gates. You can be the Sam Walton, right? You can be the Ray Kroc of McDonald's. These things are possible. You don't have to settle for what you've been told, what you've lived with, what you brought up. And this is really where Alan is trying to tell us this. He's trying to tell us, look, you can dream big and make it. It's just up to you. And so that's the point that I see in this, is that there's all these great things you can do. If you want to become a famous author, it's going to take 10,000 hours of writing. And most of these overnight successes as writers, I was reading one the other day. She had 17 novels she had written, and she'd been writing short stories since she was in elementary school. So she paid her dues, and so now she's made several $1 million off selling her books on eBay. Online on Amazon, ebooks on Amazon. And now she's several $1 million. Then she got a publishing deal because after all these 17 books of hers had been rejected by publishers multiple times. But this is the whole point. You keep the vision out in front of you. Learn the craft, learn the skills you need to market, learn all your business schools, or do as Henry Ford did and have 14 buttons on your desk with an expert at the end of each one. Build your mastermind. All these things are possible to do. The whole point is that you can create big, huge effects. And you can have a peaceful life. Earl Nightingale made several fortunes. He was successful here, went over there, he became successful, went over here and became successful again. As did many, many, many others. There's no reason to have anything happen, because there's every reason that everything can go right for you. Concentrate, focus, have your purpose in mind, train, study, work, accept the intuitive suggestions you get and act on them, as he was covering in this chapter yesterday of achievement. All these things are available. All these tools are there. The secret DVD, everything is laid out for you. And you're reading this, you're watching these videos, you've stumbled onto this for me telling you this, that all you have to do is do what you know you should be doing. Figure out your purpose by what you're really good at, what you really love to do, what you've been doing all your life, and you would love to do it for a living, right? Get a vision of what you want to accomplish, what you want to achieve or acquire, or have show up in your life. Focus on that uniquely. Put it on a card. Read it 3 times a day, out loud, as if you actually are in possession of the object or that thing has actually happened, and get the feeling of everything. Put all this stuff together that you've been reading. It is a system. There is an underlying system. That's my core belief in this. There's an underlying system, and if you know all the pieces of it and put it to work, that you can be successful at anything you want to and everything you want to. Okay? Thanks again.